You're listening to the Plane Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carlos Stebbings, Matt Smith and Neville Bounds.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 267 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. I'm Carl Stebbings, and joining me in the PTUK studios this week, along with Grouse, who's currently lying on my feet.
Oh, is he? Oh, right.
Yeah,
He's
keeping
making
my
himself
feet
at home,
warm.
is he? Yeah, well, because obviously the one thing we need in here is extra warmth, of course.
He is actually lying on my feet.
He's actually
yeah.
lying on your feet, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, dear. There we are. Yes, I'm all right, thank you. How about you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, yes. It's been a really miserable day today here in the east of Anglia with the rain, but I think it's much well received because Gemma was moaning earlier on in the week that we hadn't had enough rain for her precious garden.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay.
I know.
Well, I mean, it is, first world problems.
You know
and
what
all
she's
that.
like about her garden, man.
Yes, very precious about it. And whose is the lawn idea, by the way? Was that you or her?
What's that?
The lawn that you now have to mow.
Oh God, yeah. That's one of the things she was moaning about.
Oh, because it's dying, I suppose.
Yeah, it's having a bit of a dying situation.
Yes, indeed.
But,
I mean, we're slightly off topic.
Been coaching this week?
Yes,
Smith?
absolutely. Yes, I've been out in various vehicles this week. I'm trying to think. I'll tell you what. I did a really fascinating. He wants to go out now.
All right.
A really fascinating tour. No, he's changed his mind. To South Lincolnshire.
Lincolnshire.
I went to Lincolnshire, yes, and did a churches tour, which was absolutely fascinating. And it was basically flowers and stuff all inside. In fact, actually, if I'd have thought about it, I took loads of photos. I could have put some on, but honestly, it was wonderful. It's one of my favourite groups to take out anyway. And I've obviously reached that age, where one has a fine appreciation for the artwork involved in putting together a nice bunch of flowers. And then like one of the churches had loads of really cool scarecrows and all that kind of. We only managed about 5, but it was really really good. And then
good.
I went to the Gresson Hall Rural Life Museum.
Oh yes,
today.
that's great there.
It is
love
absolutely.
it
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, if Nev goes there, it's sort of from his childhood, but
Yeah. And joining us as well, looking rather happy, is obviously Mr. Neville Bounds.
Hello. Yes, here I am back again after my trip to Budapest last week.
Right,
which
now,
was very satisfactory, I must say.
I mean, you said you were working. He said in inverted commas, working.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Dr. Steph's conference.
Oh, I see.
Oh,
right. Yes,
yeah.
I see. I'm with you.
So,
Okay.
It's the same idea, really.
Right. Good.
But I've never been to Hungary before, and it was fantastic. Really nice place, fantastic people. Interesting enough, obviously I went on the BA flight as one
course,
should.
yes. Yes.
But a couple of my colleagues went on the EasyJet flight from Gatwick
Oh dear.
to Budapest, and there were 3 hen parties on board, and apparently the captain nearly diverted the aircraft because
Oh, my
they were
goodness.
so rowdy.
What a
we
treat.
don't get that on BA.
No, goodness me. Perish the thought.
So a bit of a quick NPE from you then, Nev. How was the flights?
Yes, very nice. Very windy coming back though into Heathrow, but although the wind was straight down the runway, so it was okay. But it's jolly bumpy. But
Was that the 320?
Just one. 320 it was, yes.
Yeah, okay.
But just one trip round the hold and then straight in, so that was great. And it was handbaggage only for us, so we could get off the aircraft sharpish, which was
Very
great.
good.
So
Were
we
you,
enjoyed that. And if anybody is thinking of going to Budapest, I would highly recommend it if you like food and inexpensive beer, which is probably why the hen and stag parties head for that, or Prague, I would imagine.
So hungry by name, but not by nature, essentially, by the time you finish, by the sound of it.
Sounds like somewhere
Absolutely,
Captain Al would love.
Well, yes.
I think it is. Yeah.
Definitely on his list of places he must visit. Yeah,
I know.
Absolutely.
So joining us as well again this week, as always, he's across the pond. It's the awesome Armando.
Hey guys, as usual, I'm happy to be here this week, and I've been decorating a little bit, at least for the YouTube version of the podcast. So it's been a very domestic week for me, although I did get to fly those cadet flights with the Civil Air Patrol last weekend. in a very, very nice G1000 Cessna 182. But other than that, not much.
Yeah. So for those who don't get the opportunity to listen to the show, perhaps you could describe what is on the wall behind you.
Yeah, so this is my attempt at making some kind of weird train station, airport terminal thing. I thought it would be appropriate to have the London time zone, my home time zone here in Charlotte, and then Los Angeles was just too long to stencil out with my daughter's arts and crafts store. So I thought Seattle was appropriate, for an aviation podcast.
Okay. Yes. No. I see what you did there. Very good. Yeah.
Looks good. It looks very good. It looks good. So
yeah, we're getting there.
Is the obviously, because you've been trying to get flying now for a few weeks, obviously the weather I'm guessing is better than it was last week, because last week you were experiencing some rather heavy thundery weather.
Yeah, I think that Friday afternoon we did get some pretty severe weather. It tends to blow by fairly quickly in this area. I think, when I was out west, it would do the same. You just sort of wait a couple hours. But Saturday, Sunday, it cleared up just fine, and I was able to get in the air. We have very specific criteria when we fly cadets for orientation rides, but everything went without a hitch, and the weather cleared up for the weekend. And then I think it's 2 weeks old now. I think we've talked about it already, but we'll also have finally got a chance to put together the flying segment from Steph, Megan, and I's flight out to Asheville.
Yeah, that's coming up later on the show. Really looking forward to that, because I had a little preview of that earlier on. It looks very good, especially with the audio, Armando. It's really good with the audio. I love the audio with you guys talking, so well done. So coming up in the show, as Armando said, we've got that segment of video, which will be awesome for those of you guys and girls watching in the world of YouTube.
Before we move on, actually, I should just
we better point out where this comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. So those of you watching on the YouTube feed will know that we have a backdrop that's usually sent by one of our listeners in. This one has been sent to us by Ray Davis, and I mean, it's it's beautiful, isn't it? So somebody tell me the details of what this aircraft is.
Armando?
So I believe that's a T-28, right? It's a T-28 Trojan that he took a picture of his family. Yeah, it's a trainer. It's a very capable airplane, and I think a lot of countries used them as a trainer, and I think there was even some attack versions made.
Yeah, I mean, it's an absolutely beautiful picture as well. So thank you very much to Ray for that. I'm just trying to find, because he also sent us a couple of videos, didn't he? That went with it, of stuff that was flying. There we go.
Watch.
Here we go. Look at that. I love the noise, actually. So what sort of engine is in that?
Is that a radial engine in those, Armando?
Yeah, it sure is. I'll look it up right now, but he sent me those pictures also, and what's cool about a T-28 is when you're standing next to it, it's so tall. Like, you can see the size of the pilots there in the video.
Yeah.
But when you're standing next to it, it's a very imposing sort of airplane for a trainer. Very cool.
It is very cool, yes. But
sorry, that's me.
You're right there. Yes. Yeah, but it's very, very, very cool. Thank you very much, Ray, for sending those in. If you have a backdrop that you would be willing to share with us that we can put up behind us, then it's podcast@planetalkinguk.com, podcast@planetalkinguk.com, and obviously we'll give you a name check. If you've got any video or a story behind how come you came across the picture, then that would be so much the better.
So welcome to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening. Loads of people in the chat room tonight.
Busy
old very busy
today,
chat room.
yeah.
Hello to Gustav Julenson. Hello to you, Philip Davis, Benjamin Todd. We've got Tony S, Chris Griggs, Neil Lamworn is in the chat room. Dr. Steph has also joined us in the chat room.
I've heard
as well.
of her.
I know. Who else we got? I'm just scrolling down. Andy Furlong. Hello, Andy, to you. Oh, Armando's in the chat room. That's always good. John Jester.
not heard
Hello
of
to you, John.
My long-time friend.
Captain Jeff is also in the chat room, so we must be on our best behaviour. And also joining us from Rome, it's the lovely Jenny Parkinson.
The lovely Jenny. Yes, I always get very nervous when Jeff is in the chat room. I feel like he would be holding up like scorecards. Do you know what I mean? Sort of marking us out of 10.
It's at the,
and Paul, look, Paul from the Layovers podcast. has just popped up in
Paul
the chat.
Papadimitriou.
Hello.
Hello, Paul, from the Layover. Yeah, I think I've listened to the latest Layovers podcast. Awesome. For anyone who loves their chat about kind of more focused towards the airports and stuff.
Andy
really good.
Furlong as well. Wow, they really are all a My goodness me. Hello, sir. Andy is the one that did all the graphics for like our logo and things like that. And it's not seen you in the chat room for a while. Hello, this is very exciting.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Yes.
So we better crack on. I suppose we do.
Yes.
So we are going to start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, Matt.
Yeah, why not?
Nev.
Yes.
Armando.
Let's go.
yeah. What he said.
So, kicking off this week's first news story on the 1mileatatime.com
I'm
website.
sorry, what?
I know, 1 mile at a time. It's actually an aviation
Where do you
website.
find these sites from?
That's good, isn't it?
I mean, a small part of me is impressed that you've branched out from what you normally watch on the internet, but you know, it's just.
I know.
Anyway,
which is air crash investigation.
Of course, yes,
anyway,
absolutely.
So this story is involving something we've talked about in the past on the show, actually quite recently, with airlines removing seatback TVs from aircraft. So Etihad Airways has been in cost-cutting mode as the airline has lost about $5 billion over the past 3 years. So in order to cut the costs, they've pulled funding from the airlines they had invested in, such as Air Berlin, Alitalia, Jet Airways, etc. But they've also been trying to cut costs and increase revenue from their own products. For example, they've started selling extra legroom seats in economy and have started selling food and drinks in economy and more. The airline has now announced the next step on their journey to cost cut, taking notes from American, I think, is in terms of what they're doing their on-board products. So between now and August, Etihad will be transforming the economy cabins on 23 of their Airbus A320s and A321s, and as of now they have 32 of these aircraft. As part of this retrofit program, they'll be installing new slimline seats from UK-based firm Acro, and these new Etihad seats won't feature any personal TVs. Rather, Etihad will allow passengers to stream wireless entertainment to their smartphones and tablets, and they'll be offering more than 300 hours of free entertainment, the word free entertainment, through the Panasonic EXW system to a wide range of content, and also guests can download the eBox Stream app prior to travel. Etihad says they won't be removing televisions from any of their wide-bodied aircraft, so these changes will exclusively be occurring on aircraft operating on flights within 5 hours of Abu Dhabi. And not surprisingly, Etihad is marketing this as an enhancement. They're describing these as a refresh of modern cabins featuring industry-leading seats. Etihad hasn't clarified what the new seat pitch will be or how many more seats they'll be able to install as a result of these changes, but they do say the seats will provide increased knee room, and they are cleverly designed around the guests' digital devices with fast-charging USB points and an adjustable phone and tablet holder.
Yes,
That's
I did pop a picture of that up actually while you were talking. I mean, most things do seem to be going that way, don't they? So I mean, actually,
the tablet
I think
holder looks really good.
Yeah, it does. I think it's the way forward. Actually, I'm surprised because it's. I mean, presumably, Nev, I'm not speaking out of turn here, but surely the weight benefit to just literally having a server and a load of Wi-Fi essentially within the aircraft. I mean, surely that's got to have a massive saving on hardware and that. I mean, you're going to have a beast of a router essentially, aren't you, to handle that throughput? But that's got to be lighter.
You're right, and I think that I think people are looking at better ways of serving up the in-flight entertainment now, and some of the rather bulky things that they've had in the past. Obviously, it does have an effect on fuel burn, and people want to use their own devices and this kind of stuff, and they want good connectivity if there's some streaming stuff that they can get access to. So, no, definitely the way forward. And obviously, they're making the seats slightly smaller. I don't know whether that's going to affect the comfort side of it or not, but it'd be interesting. I'd love to try it out, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, because everybody's got a tablet, I suppose, or a device of some description where they could do that.
My usual argument of, people that are a bit more senior might not necessarily be able to do that, but Mrs. Nev's mum is 89 years old, and she does all her internet banking and stuff on her iPad.
On her iPad, yeah, absolutely.
Watches films and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
There's no reason at all. So I think this is definitely a big improvement, I would say.
This is it, and if you've got the ability to charge your tablet while you're watching the stuff as well, I mean, as long as you're getting a good sort of 2.5 amps out of the port, I mean, really that should be enough to sort of entertain you throughout the entire flight and charge your tablet up, surely. So
I think I'll be more I've seen various airlines kind of take on seatback screens. And they do differ a hell of a lot between airlines. You know, some airlines seatback screens are really high quality HD screens, and other ones are not.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And obviously, if you're bringing a tablet on board, such as an iPad or an Android tablet, it's safe to say that the quality is going to be.
So if you do short haul on BA, Nev, is there still any kind of IFE?
No, only the drop-down screens from the top for the safety briefing and that kind of stuff. On the medium haul stuff, so the longer trips, there are some. What have they got? I think they may have some on the A321s for the longer haul stuff that they've got. But no, generally speaking, all the stuff within Europe they don't have it. And frankly, you don't need it. People have got their own stuff.
Because well, as you say, I mean, and even me when I do my short, I've usually got a handful of podcasts that I want to listen to while I'm there, or I've downloaded some stuff, like from the BBC iPlayer, for example, because you can download stuff, or even Netflix now, you can download shows to watch offline.
Do you remember the days with the airlines having those pull-down TVs from the centre?
With the three
TFT
colour
kind of. The old school TVs that used to come down from the ceiling.
I was in a coach today that still has exactly that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, you remember back in the day when we didn't have cell phones and mobile devices, and you were on a short flight and there weren't any TVs, and you had to sort of talk to your neighbor.
Yeah. Whoa! What? Communicate? Holy crap!
Really, Armando?
Gosh, that is that you.
It's old school.
I would say you're showing your age, but you're younger than we are.
He is, yeah. So
I started flying young, though.
Okay, all right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good recovery. Well played.
So the next story, Matt. It's obviously a Ryanair story, but
right.
This is a rather disturbing story that you found this week, didn't you?
Yeah, so this is the journal.ie, and the headline is Punches Thrown, Vodka Downed, and Music Blared on chaotic Ryanair flight to basically Carlos's hometown, or home country, I should say. So an RTA...
A normal flight, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, especially because he's very excited about going there, no doubt. But an RTE reporter has described a chaotic and at times quite scary Ryanair flight from Dublin to Malta, during which drunken fights broke out amongst passengers who were headed for a dance festival. Speaking on RTE's News at 1, reporter Kieran Deenan recalled how many of the young people on the Malta-bound flight were inebriated before takeoff, and that it was only when the airplane was on the runway did he realise that 150 of the 180 passengers on the flight were heading to a dance festival on the Mediterranean island. Several brawls broke out during the fight, said Deenan, who described how one one man was pinned to the ground for a large part of the flight by two other men so that he could be kept under control. There were punches thrown. One man was held up to the window of the plane by his neck. So it was quite a scary experience, especially for those people not interested in the dance festival at all. There were some going to the dance festival who behaved themselves, but of the 180 on the flight, there was quite a number who were very unruly. The Dublin to Malta flight was late taking off, Deenan said, as people were jumping in and out of their seats with some passengers shouting at the stewards or giving them hand gestures to show that they weren't really interested in what they thought. It was when the flight did eventually take off to the sound of dance music, which was blaring all over the plane, that the real messing really started, Deenan said. They kept serving alcohol, is this headline that's just appeared. It says huge groups congregated at both bathrooms, mainly because the drinks carts were there and they bought many, many drinks. And there was huge bottles from duty free were opened, bottles of rum, bottles of vodka, bottles of whiskey, and they were being downed on the plane, said Deenan. There was one man handing out a big bottle of vodka for people to take sips out of. So it was quite scary because there was a lot. There was always the chance that things would spill over. Thankfully, things didn't quite spill over, but really there was an opportunity that it could have done. The RTE reporter said the Ryanair staff on board the chaotic flight were very slow in dealing with the problem. I'm not going to read on because it's pretty... Oh, actually, no, I will. Actually, they seemed to think there was very little to do except advise people to turn down their radios. I wasn't witness to any of them trying to take glass bottles away from people. They kept serving alcohol on the flight for an hour and a half, despite it being obvious that there was an issue concerning that there was so much alcohol had already been consumed by the passengers. When, and about halfway through the flight, staff did try to get the situation under control, it was just too late because it had all got too much out of hand. There was pushing and shoving, and there was fights breaking out. There was a lot of shouting and roaring along the aisles. The airline has since issued a statement saying that crew on Dublin to Malta flights requested police assistance on arrival after several passengers became disruptive in flight. The aircraft landed normally and the police removed and detained these individuals. The airline said it would not tolerate unruly or disruptive behaviour at any time, and the safety and comfort of our passengers, crew and aircraft is our number one priority. This is now a matter for local police.
I will say one thing, being spending a lot of time in Malta.
Yeah,
it's a quiet island. It is a quiet island, to be fair, and it's a lovely destination. But I tell you what, their police, and I've seen their police in action.
Right, okay.
They do not take a lot.
They don't take prisoners.
Sierra Hotel India Tango.
No, okay, fair enough. I mean, there's several issues with this story. I mean, the first one is I actually have a great deal of sympathy, as usual, for the crew on this, because it's saying 150 of the 180 passengers on that flight were going to that dance festival, and certainly the article indicates that an awfully large number of them were unruly. With the greatest respect, the majority of people who are, perhaps cabin crew, certainly with this particular airline, are not particularly old. And I probably would have been kind of taking a bit of a back seat because I didn't want to get hurt. So I that's my major issue with this article, actually, is sort of making it sound like, the cabin crew had a responsibility. I think when you've got numbers of that, those kind of numbers, I mean, anything could have happened. Anything could have happened in that situation. I'm surprised that the captain didn't divert.
Mm.
I'm not really familiar with the route. Somebody maybe explain to me. Are you over the water for a very, very long time? Is that why?
Only when you come over the coast over Italy. They normally take they kind of follow the sort of German, French kind of, then go down towards Italy, over Sicily.
I mean, there is of course the possibility that this article has been exaggerated. Of course.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't. They could have easily diverted, I suppose, whenever this happened.
Okay, so let's we'll go to Nev first. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, they took a Ryanair flight, didn't they?
There we go.
Okay, right.
That's all I've got to say about that. And if you just imagine the cost of a diversion firstly, and also with the quick turnaround times that Ryanair have in particular, and other low-cost airlines have as well. And like everybody will be out of position, the crew would be out of position, possibly have gone out of hours, or the aircraft's in the wrong place.
True.
Things go wrong fairly quickly. So probably, and obviously we weren't there, but it sounds like it was the right decision to carry on to the destination. But I think it's very difficult for the cabin crew to start getting involved in these things, but they have to somehow maintain order in the cabin, and that must be a very challenging job.
I mean, they're also saying, like, for example, that they weren't, they carried it. This reporter is saying he sort of seemed almost dumbfounded by the fact that they were still serving alcohol. But again, with that mob mentality, you're probably just thinking, I'm just going to have to keep going here because, I don't know. I think there's a real issue of safety here. I think the crew were carrying on essentially because it was the safest thing to do.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I'm sure, we weren't there, but I'm sure there was a discussion between the crew as to what it is that we're going to do here. And if you're going to divert to France or Italy or somewhere and you have 150 drunk passengers, not that if 150 of them were drunk, but
no.
What are you going to do with those passengers? Exactly. There's a business aspect to it. There's a safety aspect to it where I'm sure the pilots were talking to the flight attendants and asking, well, you guys need to let us know when you believe it's a safety issue. Obviously, with fights breaking out on board, it's probably a safety issue. But yeah, just like you guys were saying, what are you going to do at that point? Do you just turn back to Dublin or?
Descend to about 12,000 feet, open the door, and see you later.
I mean, you could just depressurize at altitude, and everybody would go to sleep. So
that's very true. That's very true.
Surely there's
not an accepted method.
I was going to say,
calming down passengers.
It would certainly quieten them down.
Yeah, I mean, surely there's an issue of giving the entire cabin essentially the bends. I mean, there's a couple of small issues to that, but anyway,
moving on to the next story.
Suffice to say, I feel very sorry for this poor crew. That's I think that is what we'll say.
So from one very small set of. Oh, hello, Matt. You're right.
I pressed the wrong button. I'm so sorry.
Thanks, folks.
The show had finished
That's
so
it.
quickly.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks so much. See you next week. Bye.
Sorry.
Oh, dear. Anyway,
sorry. I'm using my mobile to control the system for the first time. I've been carrying out some. Yeah, it's all right. Thanks.
So from one small group of passengers who were very
just
unhappy
gloss
on that
over
flight,
it. Keep moving. It'll be
to
fine.
the next story, Nev, and to one person who wasn't happy about his flight.
Yes, and here it is. It's the other encyclopedia that we refer to when we want accurate aviation news.
God.
It's the sun.co.uk.
No.
And the headline says, Filthy Airways. British Airways passenger who paid £3,000 for business class flights is furious to find dirty seats and hair in his meal. The frequent flyer was looking forward I can't even spell or pronounce the words properly, was looking forward to a luxury experience, but was left very disappointed. And it says that the frequent flyer who was sitting in the first class section of the flight, I didn't think there was even the first class section on those mid-haul things, said that even the bathrooms were crumbling, and he dreaded to think what the other areas of the dated plane were like. And this gentleman, Nans, was travelling with his partner and two friends on BA 154 from Cairo to London on Monday. He explained to the Sun Online Travel how the group were all frequent flyers with silver and gold status in BA's executive club. It means they've racked up thousands of miles by flying with the airline and its partners, so they knew what to expect from the airline. Having paid around £3,000 for the flights, he was looking forward to a luxurious experience, but what greeted him was a very disappointing one. And I don't know if Matt's got some pictures up here, but
am I supposed to have done something?
Well, you don't have to, but there are some pictures of some of the evidence there. And the passenger said that the footrest was covered in dirt. And also he spotted a hair in his meal. And he told the Sun Online Travel it was a very, very dirty flight. The sort of flight that Al would have enjoyed, possibly. But there we are.
Yeah, there is that.
And the passenger explained that he had booked business class flights as BA didn't officially have first-class seats for the route, just as I said at the beginning. However, the plane they were flying on had a first-class section, which as executive club members, they were invited to sit in. But when he got to his seat, Nans immediately spotted that it was covered in dirt. He photographed the footrest, which he said was covered with dirt, although the airline disputes this and says that it is scuffs. There's some further pictures there. Oh, he also says that the Wi-Fi was down as well. And the passenger said there's even more dirt on all of the sides. All of the seats were awful. And when he complained to the cabin crew, he said whilst they were very apologetic, they didn't do anything. I'm not sure what they were supposed to do, actually. But he said the experience didn't improve. And he said that it was a very old and dated cabin. And even the toilets were crumbling. The Wi-Fi wasn't working on the flight, even though they were told it was available. And to make matters worse, Nans, the passenger, found a hair in his food. Now, my recommendation to this gentleman would have been not to go on a massive rant, as he did on Twitter. I would have just written to the airline nicely and waited for a response rather than going full on, because as my parents taught me, manners are everything. And I think that had he done that, he might have got a slightly more sympathetic response. But nonetheless, that's what he's done, and I'm sure there's going to be some correspondence going backwards and forwards. But if you've got a complaint, take it up with the cabin crew, and if they can't solve it, drop a quick note to BA themselves. Don't plaster it all over Twitter if it's it's inconvenient and it's not ideal, but it's hardly a showstopper, is it?
No, indeed.
I was just looking on that one of those pictures, Nev. It's showing a safety card from a 777-200. So I don't know
I love.
Well, the interiors are getting on a bit, but
I love British Airways' slightly snarky response on Twitter to his Twitter rant, which is, "We realize you're disappointed that we won't be offering a gesture on this occasion. The marks looks like scuffs. We'll ensure this gets taken care of. We hope your flight to New York this morning is a pleasant one."
it's a polite way of saying yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of with Nev on this one, though. Actually, there are ways in which you can deal with these things, and perhaps by all means go on the Twitter rant if you've been in touch with the airline and not had a response. Maybe even if you haven't had a satisfactory response, perhaps, but surely the massive public naming and shaming should be the last sort of straw, if you like. Try old school way first, you know what I mean?
One thing I'm curious about, and I don't know because I'm not a commercial pilot, how much control does British Airways have, or how much quality control does British Airways have over the cabin cleaning service in Cairo and the catering service in Cairo? I know they should probably have.
They're probably not using their own staff, so it's probably a contracted out cleaning company, I would imagine. So, but these are always the cases, aren't they? Down route, then you obviously it's the cabin services director's responsibility to make sure that the cabin is as clean as it can be. But these things happen from time to time, and as I said, I just think his reaction to it, especially on social media, for my liking, was a bit much. That was all.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Nev. I have to be honest. As I say, there's a protocol. I mean, that's your last resort, in my book.
Yes.
So Armando, the next story is some competition.
Yeah, so after the last two media sources, I am privileged to read a story from the BBC. And it goes on, the past decade, China, soon to become the world's largest aviation market, has been developing its own planes as it seeks to loosen Western manufacturers' grip on the sector. The planes made by Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China, or COMAC, have drawn plenty of criticism. Few in the industry believe Chinese-made jets will rival those of Boeing and Airbus in the near term. But analysts say that over time, state-backed COMAC, part of China's wider push into high-tech manufacturing, could challenge the established players. What aircraft has COMAC built, you might ask? So far, it has built 2 jets, the ARJ-21 and the C-919, and is working with Russia on a 3rd aircraft. Only the 90-seat ARJ-21 jet is in service. However, after suffering from long delays and being plagued with noise and other problems, the aircraft has been roundly rejected as inferior to planes from competitors such as Embraer and Bombardier. Among the critics is Teal Group aviation analyst Richard Abulafia. He says that while the aircraft is touted as proof China could be the next big jet maker, it turned into an overweight and stunningly obsolete product that has no relevance outside of China's tiny regional airline sector. COMAC has bigger ambitions for the C-919, seating up to 168 people. China's first large passenger jet is designed to compete with Boeing 737 MAX and Airbus's A320neo. Its 3rd test flight was completed in December, and first deliveries are scheduled for 2021. COMAC did not respond to BBC requests for comment, but data from a aviation consultancy shows the firm has received nearly 1,000 commitments for the C-919, mostly from Chinese airlines and domestic leasing firms. The order book includes the country's 3 major air carriers, Air China, China Southern, and China Eastern. The article goes on to talk a little bit about the certification process. They are only certified by the Chinese, which only allows them to operate in parts of Asia, Africa, South America, and anywhere else would require either US FAA or EASA certifications. And those are, well, far from certain, as they say.
And as Gustav said in the chat room, the ARJ-21 is very much like an MD kind of product, MD-80 kind of style aircraft with 2 rear-mounted engines.
Yeah, I saw it, and even the shape of the engines, it very much looks like somewhere between a DC-9 and an F-100. I think even the MD-80, MD-90 series is a little bit higher spec than what they're showing in this ARJ-21.
Yeah, the C-919 is actually powered by CFM, International Leap 1C engines. The other one, the latest one, which is not yet in service, I think you said, didn't you, Armando?
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's one of those things. I think they're going to have it won't happen soon, but with all the problems that are happening with Boeing at the moment, who knows? They might suddenly all of a sudden get some orders for these aircraft.
Well, I love Liz Piper's comment in the chat room, which, well, Jeff always has a career teaching Chinese pilots how to fly this MD-80-esque, F-100-esque aircraft.
Actually, Paul Papadimitriou in a chat room has said that it could be that China aviation is today where Japan cars were in the 60s. People would mock them and judge them inferior. I wouldn't discount China in the midterm.
No, definitely not. No, I can see why.
So moving on to the next story, Armando. He's
just done.
It's actually me, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
It's a good thing it's because my access is denied from this side of the ocean.
Ah.
And
you're right there.
Yeah, just couldn't find the story. It's come up here. It's not. No, it's not come up. The story's not come up.
No, mine. It hasn't on mine either.
No, it was there.
Interesting.
Well, actually, the story was supposed to be that Jet2 has been named Airline of the Year again at Glasgow Airport, which is no surprise. 'Cause I think Jet2 are doing very well at the moment here in the UK as an airline. But good on Jet2. And actually, on the note of Jet2, because I know Jake Mears listens to the show. Congratulations to Jake. He was on the show as a guest a while back now, and he was actually here in the studio. Right. Jake has been very lucky indeed to be accepted into the Jet2 training program as FO. So well done to you, Jake. He's going to be starting his training to fly the Boeing 737 for Jet2 very soon. So well done, Jake.
Okay, on to the next story then. This is on the ZD net. And the headline is United Airlines covers up seat cameras following passenger privacy outrage. United Airlines has covered every camera embedded in entertainment systems within the back of plane seats in response to passenger privacy concerns. The cameras were included in off-the-shelf screen and entertainment products the airline purchased. United Airlines was quick to respond to requests concerning the cameras, unsurprisingly given the airline's recent PR disasters relating to the violent removal of a passenger by security and the death of a puppy that staff insisted be stowed in an overhead bin. Speaking to BuzzFeed News, the carrier said that all cameras found in the back of all premium seats will now be covered, but their purpose was never to monitor passengers. Rather, the cameras were included for possible future applications such as video conferencing. As with many other airlines, some of our premium seats have in-flight entertainment systems that came with cameras installed by the manufacturer. A United Airlines spokesman said none of these cameras were ever activated and we had no plans to use them in the future. However, we took the additional step to cover the cameras. Stickers have been spotted which now cover the cameras, and the airline says that the all-new premium seats will also receive the same treatment. Singapore Airlines too has recently faced criticism for camera usage. In February, one passenger posted an image on Twitter which revealed a small camera under the screen of a Singapore Airlines seat pointing to flyers. These cameras on our new IFE systems were provided by the original equipment manufacturers, the airline said, responding directly to the tweet. We have no plans to enable or develop any features using the cameras. At a time when facial recognition technology, AI bias cameras and surveillance continue to intrude on our privacy, it is also airports which are coming under fire for adopting such technology without making the situation clear to the public. Earlier this month, a passenger with JetBlue took to Twitter after finding that facial recognition technology appeared to have replaced boarding passes with the airline. A public Twitter discussion revealed that the technology tapped into biometric information from the Customs and Border Protection database, which is quite interesting. I don't really have much of a problem.
I don't see what when you'd ever use a camera in the back of one of these IFE screens, unless you were Skyping your mum and dad at home.
But I suppose as technology moves on, which it's not moving on as fast as it was, I know, but it is still sort of moving. I
always thought they were photo sensors. I had no clue until we started doing these stories here a couple months ago, and it started coming out. I thought they were photo sensors, so they could do some kind of
like
auto dim thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I just felt. The thing is when you buy any off-the-shelf unit, every laptop, every tablet, every iPad comes with a camera built into it. So, if it's an off-the-shelf sort of touchscreen type device, then they all do come with cameras. But we're not all sitting here freaking out about the fact that the camera on my laptop, the light isn't on to say it's watching me, but there's nothing to say that it isn't being remotely accessed without that light being turned on. So,
and let's be fair, the cameras in the laptops are normally not the megaest
also,
quality.
What on earth are you doing on the aircraft that makes you nervous about your privacy?
Exactly.
It's not exactly like you're in your own little private cubicle.
No idea what you could be doing.
If they put an IFE system, I say on one of the Emirates, well, then they shouldn't, because if they're wiping it on, it's to do that again so that the people can see what. Yeah, exactly, which is always nice. But unless the IFE, unless there was an entertainment system in the shower block on the Emirates, on the A380, then I don't really understand why anybody has a problem with the cameras being there.
I want the camera to be above the door looking into the cockpit so I can watch the pilots. Now, that would be cool.
Well, there is that. Well, and some of them do have cameras at the front, don't they?
Yeah,
so
they do.
So you can see what's going on. What do you reckon, Nev?
Well, the thing is now, we just we think we know what's going on, but we don't really, do we? We don't know just because the camera light isn't on, that it's not being seen. In where I may have mentioned this before, actually, but the job that I do when I'm there, we install video conferencing systems into boardrooms and conference rooms, and there's a lot of clarity around whether the system is muted or not. And actually the larger manufacturers, when the system is turned off, actually the camera swivels round and points to the wall rather than to the rest of the room, just to sort of show people that the camera isn't actually being used to see them.
Okay.
But data and our data and what's going on, it's all become a bit blurred for my liking, especially with what's been going on in the UK in the last 3 or 4 days. So
Yes.
I'm you never quite know, do you? That's what I would say.
But yes, and I mean, obviously, the situation that you're talking about, where the the ministry, is, somebody basically lost their job over something. I mean, I get that. Obviously, that's, and in a conference room, you don't want somebody sort of watching. But I mean, these guys are basically. I mean, surveillance is everywhere now. I mean, if you're not, I don't know, perhaps I've got the wrong attitude here. If you're not doing anything wrong sat in that seat, if all you're doing is watching in-flight entertainment, eating your meals, chatting to the person next to you, how is that any different to sitting in, say, Hyde Park in London and doing the same thing? Because you've probably got a camera watching you while you're sat on that park bench chatting anyway. I mean, yes, in an ideal world, these cameras wouldn't be active and they wouldn't be watching you. But how is it different to you being in any public space?
Yes, I think there's different views on that, and Tony does make a reasonable point in the chat room where he says that, if you remember the scandal where a South Korean television manufacturer was recording people's conversations without their permission.
Yes.
So there are things that I think are perfectly reasonable, but as you say, in the main, if you're not doing anything that you shouldn't be doing, then there's nothing to worry about.
Yeah, why are you worried, essentially?
But I spend a lot of my time doing things that I shouldn't be doing, so I'm worried about it straight away.
And moving swiftly on. Nev, the next story. What's going on with Emirates?
Well, this is interesting because it says that the grounding of the this is on the CNBC.com website, by the way, and the grounding of the 737 MAX airplanes has cost Emirates' sister airline Fly Dubai a lot of profitability, and Airbus aircraft could now be replacing some Boeing orders, the Middle East's airline CEO and chairman said on Monday. Ahmed bin Zayed Al Maktoum said Fly Dubai, a regional partner of Emirates, has had to stop using 40 aircraft due to the worldwide grounding of the 737 MAX aircraft following 2 deadly crashes involving the model. The CEO added that with more than 100 MAX 8 planes currently on order, he couldn't sit and do nothing and needed to look at options such as the Airbus A320. I have to look into a similar type of aircraft, let's say with Airbus, Al Maktoum told CNBC's Dan Murphy at the Arabian Travel Market trade show in Dubai on Monday. The Emirates and Fly Dubai chief said he would always demand that we be compensated, but would not yet take the step of officially cancelling orders. When asked how the Boeing crashes could affect the aerospace sector, Al Maktoum said he expected a lot of pressure on the US Federal Aviation Authority, the FAA, to be more candid about how it certifies Boeing aircraft. In February, Airbus announced an end to its A380 jumbo program, just 12 years after it first took to the skies. And the future of the world's largest commercial jetliner has been long in doubt after it became clear that it was heavily reliant on big purchases from Emirates. Al Maktoum said that the rise of more efficient aircraft had obviously impacted upon the success of the A380, but Airbus's decision to end the program wouldn't negatively affect the airline's relationship with the plane maker. And that will not change, he said. At the end of the day, they're running a business. And we are today at 107 aircraft, and will go up to 125 before we see some of the older aircraft coming out of the fleet. Now, could I just point out that although they have grounded the 737 MAX for the moment, the thought you could just suddenly switch your orders to A320s, having things roll off the production line in Toulouse and Hamburg for delivery in a couple of months' time, forget it, because these guys and girls are back ordered the same as everybody else is. So I think that and think about type certification and pilot availability and all that sort of business. So I think it's a little bit bold to come out with that kind of statement. But from a commercial point of view, this is going to cost Boeing dearly, clearly. But I would be very surprised if they have short-term order loss here, because let's face it, this aircraft is going to be the safest one flying in a few months' time when it's back.
As we sort of said last week, wasn't it? I mean, this is, me as a nervous flyer is the first one to admit that when this plane finally gets back in the air, really, any qualms you have about it, say, I mean, to be fair, if it did go back in the air and it did have a problem, then I think that would have to be the end of it, wouldn't it? I mean, but I don't know. I mean, how do you feel about this, Armando? What are your thoughts, really?
I think in industry conversation, it's only natural that the conversation is going to come up where, hey, will somebody switch over their orders? But I'm with Nev on this one. It's not that easy to cancel a $22 billion order. I'm with you guys. It'll be a safe airplane. They'll work it out, and next year it'll be something that we look back on episode 267 and think about.
So Nev, on that story, there was another piece of quite exciting, I think, information regarding Emirates, wasn't there?
There was indeed, and they've confirmed a major rollout of premium economy seating, which will occur from some point in 2020. Al Maktoum, the CEO, hinted that the market demand for this class of economy between economy and business had pressured Emirates into a change of strategy. We've always got to follow what the customer wants, not to offer what we like, he told CNBC. And earlier on Monday, Emirates said political tensions in the region and elsewhere had slowed the growth of the airline. We've managed to come up ahead with some positive results, although it's not as good as it has been in the past, President Tim Clark told Reuters. And Emirates is due to report their full-year results on May the 9th. And the article has been updated that I was reading to reflect that Ahmed bin Zayed Al Maktoum was speaking his capacity as a senior executive at both Emirates and Fly Dubai. So that's some backpedaling in that article there. I think.
It's definitely good news, though, for Emirates. I wondered, because we talked about this earlier on in the year, I think, whether Emirates would kind of breach into the premium economy kind of market, and I think this is going to be a good idea for Emirates, because I think people will, if they can offer an enhanced version of economy, because Emirates economy is already incredibly good. I'm up for that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So moving on to the next story.
This is from CNBC.com. Just kidding. It's from simpleflying.com. Alarmingly, there have been several close calls involving Indian aircraft during takeoff and landing during the past year. One of these saw an aircraft land on an unfinished runway, while another resulted in a wall being struck during takeoff, which I think we talked about that one too. Thankfully, none of these incidents have resulted in serious consequences. The latest incident, according to the Aviation Herald, involved a Boeing 737 registered to SpiceJet as Victor Tango Sierra Golf Juliet. Airfleets.net shows that the aircraft was originally delivered to Air Berlin in 2005, spent 8 months serving for Blue Air in 2010 before joining the SpiceJet fleet in December of 2010, making the aircraft somewhere around 14 years old. So the aircraft was operating flight SG946 from Delhi to Sidri in the south of India. Initial reports suggest that 164 people were on board the aircraft at the time. The pilots overran the 2,500 meter runway by about 100 feet, resting the aircraft on soft ground. While there were no reported injuries, both pilots have been grounded, as is customary in these circumstances. According to Indian news website Live Mint, while the incident took place at 16:30 local time, the aircraft's occupants were not rescued until 2.5 hours later. The single incident is a worrying part of a much bigger problem. SpiceJet is not the only airline which has been affected by takeoff and landing troubles lately. In September of 2018, an Indian Airlines Boeing 737 landed on an unfinished runway being built at Malé in the Maldives. The aircraft got caught in plastic debris on the runway. A month earlier, in August, the Jet Airways Boeing 737 attempted to take off from a taxiway in Mumbai. The aircraft came off the taxiway, it got stuck. Another incident saw Air India Boeing 737 strike a wall. We talked about that one. So I was looking, before the show started, I was looking at the mishaps for SpiceJet. And I guess I can't be too tough on them. Since 2005, they've had just about 20 incidents, ranging from hull loss all the way to minor incidents. And maybe this is one of those things that my brother, having flown in Indonesia and sort of that part of Asia in Southeast Asia, the flying can be quite challenging and the weather is atrocious and can be also very challenging. So I'm very, glad that nobody got injured in any of these incidents. But, with the infrastructure and the type of flying that they're trying to do with these aircrafts and the loads that they're carrying, it's only natural that these kinds of events will happen here and there. So I suppose I can't be too hard on SpiceJet on this one.
And they're supposed to be quite a nice airline to fly with, from what I've heard on other podcasts. So nice cabin crew. And some people are quick to talk about pilot training, sure, but a lot of these places are one way in, one way out, with very little margin of error for a go around or a missed approach or a bulk landing or something. So, I don't know. I haven't looked up this specific airport, but I did see some of the other websites were reporting the pictures, and the aircraft was solidly off-road. I think they were having trouble getting the air stairs to the aircraft because it was such soft ground. Yeah, there is the incident was reported on the Aviation Herald, actually. It's on the Aviation Herald website. If you look on there, there are a few pictures on there which show the aircraft, off-roading, for sure.
As you do.
Yeah. So the next story is on the simpleflying.com website. And the headline is kind of shocking because this aircraft is really old. But anyway, could Airbus build an A300 Neo to compete with the 797? So earlier this week, they discussed that Airbus had built a rival to up to the upcoming Boeing 797 before the A300. Some readers asked if the A300 was so successful, and the airlines are demanding a new mid-size aircraft. So why doesn't Airbus simply build a new version of the A300 and call it a Neo? The A300 is a very old design, and thus a new version of it will be far more than just new engines. It would involve a complete overhaul, and likely not a single original design idea would exist in the final version. The original A300 could carry 266 passengers and fly 4,000 nautical miles. It was in production for over 35 years, with the final one rolling off the line in 2007 for FedEx. Airbus has said that they will continue to support the aircraft until 2025. An A300 Neo version of the aircraft would possibly follow the trend of more passengers and more range. We would like to see an increase of up to 5,000 to 6,000 5,000 nautical miles and up to 300 passengers in a max seating configuration, but with 2 classes, and we would see 250 economy and a 333 configuration and 40 business class seats. Whether or not they'd be lie flat would be dependent on the airline's configuration, and the aircraft would be twin-aisled. It would be made of a composite material to save weight and feature winglets on the end of the wings. For a passenger experience, the Airbus would have better humidity in the cabin, quieter engines, bigger overhead bins, and better control services for pilots. And let us not forget reconfiguring the plane for 2 pilots instead of 3, because the A300 did have 3. It had a flight engineer. It would almost be impossible to list all the new features required because the aircraft would essentially be a total rebuild. For comparison's sake, the Boeing 797, which Boeing hopefully will bring out at some point soon, carries 225 to 275 passengers and will fly around 5,000 nautical miles. In this fantasy, Airbus would build 2 versions following the pattern of the A350 and A330neo, one smaller but with better range for bigger and a bigger with one more capacity flying a shorter distance. But could it actually exist, the story says? Despite all the above hope and conjecture, it's very unlikely. The first problem is that Airbus already has an aircraft that performs the A300neo role, and that's the A330. 800neo. With 257 passengers and a range of 8,150 nautical miles, it's more capable of filling the role of an A300neo. In fact, according to Airbus, it has already been being the rival to the 797. At the bottom end of the market is the A321neo. This aircraft can carry up to 240 passengers in a dense configuration and fly 4,000 nautical miles. Airbus is already in dangerous territory with its A319 and A220 lines, and they're sure not to repeat it in an A300neo. Now, I remember the A300 from many years ago. I think I remember flying one of these as a child, the 300, which was quite extensively used by quite a lot of Middle East airlines. I think Emirates used to have A300s in their fleet. But there's still, I'm pretty sure there are still quite a few A300s flying over in the US, Armando, as cargo carriers.
Yeah, I believe so. I see them quite regularly at US airports.
But a well-built aircraft, I remember there was one of these, I think it was an A300 that was hit by an air-to-air, or a ground-to-air missile.
That was a DHL one.
DHL, yeah, that got hit by a missile, and that they managed to get that aircraft back and landed, didn't they, Armando? It was
they did.
Yeah, it just goes to show the old A300 was definitely built to last. So moving on to the next story, and Matt, this one is for you, and I thought I'd choose this story for you because it features some of your favourite.
Well, this is true. Yes,
animals.
Indeed, this is on the metro.co.uk.
And when you've read this, you've got to put the pictures up.
Right, okay. So the metro.co.uk, first UK airport to get permanent team of therapy dogs to calm down nervous flyers. A Scottish airport is getting the UK's first permanent therapy dog team to help calm nervous flyers. Therapets will lend a paw to those who are anxious getting on planes and at Aberdeen International Airport from this weekend. The Travel Hub has drafted... hang on. Sorry.
You right there?
Sorry, the machine's going a bit nuts. Just bear with me a moment. I know why. So the Travel Hub has drafted a team of 4-legged volunteers after... Somebody's messing with me. Hang on. I've been testing something with somebody, and they're messing with me essentially. So just give me a moment.
You're right there, man.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
I feel like somebody has taken control.
Yes,
of
they
Matt's
have essentially.
screen right
Yeah,
now.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm having a nervous breakdown. Yes. Anyway.
Someone's VPN'd into your machine.
Yes, they have. Yes, essentially. So anyway,
Yes.
so the Travel Hub has drafted in a team of 4-legged volunteers after a successful trial over the busy Christmas and New Year period. The airport will become the first in the UK to have its very own therapy dog team when the canine crew start regular working. Regularly on Saturdays. The dogs are easily identified by their high-vis jackets. Obviously, anybody in an airport, if they're wearing a high-vis jacket and banners, will mingle with passengers and staff throughout the term. Bandanas?
Yeah.
Yes, sorry. Anyway, they are already regular visitors to nursing homes, schools, prisons and universities. But this is the first venture of this scale based in the UK, bringing dogs to an airport environment. The animals have already been helping to improve mental health and well-being, alleviate stress and calm nerves, and are now ready to work their magic with new surroundings. A joint venture endeavour by Therapet and Canine Concern Scotland, the team of 14 dogs of various sizes will be deployed with their handlers on a rota basis. Included in the team are friendly golden retrievers, German shepherds, beagles and a pug, among others. And there's some lovely pictures in here, as Carlos says, which I'll try and pop up later. Therapet's North East representative Diane Wood said, "We're delighted to take the lead in this project and have the opportunity to work with the Aberdeen Airport. All our dogs and their owners have undergone rigorous training and assessment to work in a variety of environments, and the dogs are used to being stroked and petted and generally made a fuss of, so they lap up the attention and thoroughly enjoy the opportunity to interact with passengers and staff. The mere action of stroking a dog slows down the heartbeat and reduces blood pressure, so they will be a great help to anyone feeling nervous about their journey." I won't read any more because it's sort of pretty obvious what it's all about. But it's a lovely story, isn't it? And I mean,
this is awesome. I'm looking at some of it's got the dogs' profiles in here that they're having at the airport, at Aberdeen Airport. And you've got, I mean, one of my favourites here, you've got Bronte, who is a golden retriever. Now, I love golden retrievers. My dad has too. But it gives you a little kind of fact. It says Bronte is a therapet and a playful member of the canine crew at Aberdeen International Airport. Our therapet dogs provide a positive experience for passengers when travelling through the airport. Oh, isn't that lovely? That's nice. And Matt's picked on Grace there, a Scottish deerhound. And it says here that Grace is the biggest member of the canine family. But I think this is a great idea for nervous flyers, especially if you are a dog lover and a nervous flyer.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't like dogs, then this is obviously your idea of hell, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's... Go on, Armando.
Yeah. You know, what this makes me think of, well, first of all, I love the story. And when you land from an international flight here in the U.S., a lot of times you'll see the Customs and Border Patrol either drug sniffing dogs or explosive sniffing dogs, but usually those are tiny little beagles or something like that. And you'll see, you know, everybody's tired. We've talked so much about how people get off a long haul flight and they're just tired. They're sort of cranky. But as soon as that little drug sniffing dog shows up in the baggage reclaim area, you know, everybody sort of smiles and the kids smile and the parents smile. And unless you're allergic to dogs, it just kind of lightens the atmosphere a little bit. So I think this is a great idea to have, you know, some service dogs out there calming people down. Maybe we wouldn't have to read that first Ryanair story.
I'm not sure whether Alfie would be any good at this, though, Matt.
Why?
I think Alfie would be great at this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what have you got against poor little Alfie?
Have you heard him bark?
There is that. Yes, he is a bit yappy. I will give you that. There is that to it. And actually, to be fair, Grouse I think would make an excellent.
Grouse,
dog.
God blimey,
Yeah, he'd have everybody chilled out in no time. Yeah,
excellent. So Nev, moving on to the next story.
Yes, maybe we should have a pet segment every week on the show. That'll be
yeah. I think the soporific effect of animals, I think, is the last thing that a show about aviation needs, frankly, because I struggle to be awake by the end of this usually myself, let alone if we've got a dog here.
I understand.
Yes.
I understand that.
So we're going to run a quick competition with this story, Nev. We're going to see, after you've read the story, we're going to see who can find the faux pas.
Oh, not a media fail, surely.
Yeah.
Gosh. Okay. Right. Well, let's crack on then. So it's on the dailymail.co.uk. So that tells you all you need to know, probably to begin with. But it says that a pilot with a 2-year-old daughter says it's the perfect job for working mums because you can do the school run, fly a plane in the middle, and be home for bedtime. Surrey-based Captain Iris DeCan flies the AE319 and AE320 aircraft for EasyJet, and she says it's the perfect job for working mums. A pilot, the article says, a pilot who juggles flying commercial airliners and taking care of her 2-year-old daughter says that a job at 30,000 feet is surprisingly ideal for working mothers. She's a captain for EasyJet, as I mentioned, who regularly flies out of Gatwick Airport in London with 300 passengers on board. Right. I think I've just come across the thing right there. I didn't realise that an A319 or a 320 had 300 passengers on board. I know that they're trying to get the seat pitch a bit, tighter these days, but I don't think it's going to get off the ground with that. But,
I think
anyway, she says she's got the bug.
From now on, we should all get a bell. Like, we can hit the bell when we want to stop a story.
Yeah,
I think it's a good idea.
Good point.
Yeah.
Well, let's get one of those installed. Anyway, she's a mother to Kiki, and she's one of the stars of the new reality show EasyJet Inside the Cockpit, which aims to lift the lid on being a pilot. And various pictures of her and her daughter. And she appeared on This Morning, which is a show on ITV here in the UK, alongside the First Officer Rachel Sylvester Murphy. And she said that her family life and jetting around the world are surprisingly compatible. She told presenters Holly Willoughby and Philip Schofield it was possible to do this job with a family. And she said she dreamed of taking off from being a young girl. And her colleague Rachel, who also appeared on the show, said that you're home every night, you can take them to school and pick them up and fly in the middle. Iris added that she wouldn't tell any youngster to go for it, saying, don't doubt you can do it if you really want it. It's possible with a family. The pair said it was a silly question and that they were still being asked about whether you could be a female pilot, and added that while only 5% of commercial pilots are currently women, the figures for those trained to fly planes had increased to around 18%. But as always with these things, it's a question of how your home life is. But after Holly admitted that she was getting better at flying but still had questions, the pair reassured her over her plane scenarios that scare her. Holly laughed, "I'm much better than I used to be. There's just things I've been told that put me on edge, like our podcast, for example." She added, "I heard once that if you hear 3 bing bongs, that means there is an emergency. And what on earth is turbulence?" It's just getting a bit of a silly story now from the Daily Mail. I'm actually not going to read the rest of it. But I think if you are a female pilot and you want to be able to do that job, as well as having a family, then you will work all that out, and you'll see what your husband or partner is doing, and you'll work your rosters and your schedules around their lives as well. But so there's I think that there's definitely some room for that. It might not work in everybody's situation, but certainly I think there's a possibility there.
Especially if you're squeezing 300 passengers into to one of these aircraft.
Well, there you are. Yes.
Anyway, Armando, you've got a bit of an expensive story next.
Yeah, this one's from the Oxford Mail. A former RAF pilot was given a suspended sentence and a hefty fine for flying passenger planes without the appropriate license in Oxford Crown Court yesterday. That's right. Paul Hollyroyd of Levue Beaumont, St. Peter in Jersey, admitted co-piloting 64 flights, 40 in the UK, 17 to or from Oxford, without holding the correct documentation and forging documents. The 67-year-old was given a 3-month suspended sentence and made to pay £2,115 for helping fly a Falcon 2000 between May 14 and October 17, 2017. Judge Peter Ross said the deception was very serious and equivalent to perverting the course of justice. Hollywood was banned from flying in February last year and is highly unlikely to get his license back, the court heard. Defense counsel Craig Harris noted that there was no question about Hollywood's competence as a well-known and respected pilot and that he had an otherwise unblemished record.
Wow.
Yeah, so I expect more, especially from I don't know if you call this stalking, maybe just media research, but I looked up his LinkedIn profile, and he did serve in the RAF for 5 years, I believe, 5-6 years, and you would expect more from anyone that served, but yeah, it's unbelievable that people continue to do this and putting people's lives at risk. And there was an incident here in the U.S. not too long ago, I believe, with it was either a Falcon or a Hawker, where the pilots were unlicensed to be there. And then we had the Robert Murgatroyd trial not too long ago, where he was essentially operating a commercial operation on a cost-sharing platform. And man, we go through so much training and so much
Cost.
Right, to get your pilot's license, and everybody's out there trying to make a buck and do it. And you have people like this that are literally ruining it for everyone else.
Could I just point out that the sentence and the fine that was handed out was hardly, the judiciary obviously couldn't be bothered with it because, or the judge certainly couldn't, just over £2,000 fine.
Doesn't seem like a
and
lot.
he's lost his license.
It's not very much, is it?
That's the equivalent for driving, without due care and attention on the road.
Yeah.
Let alone, operating a commercial aircraft like this. So I find that extraordinary.
I wonder if you were caught driving a coach without an appropriate license, what would the fine be?
Probably more than that. Probably more than £2,000.
This is my whole point.
Yeah.
It's just, with the best will in the world, even the biggest buses and stuff you've got, you get what, probably 80, 90 people on with a double decker. And that's probably a much, much bigger fine. The whole thing, you do worry sometimes that perhaps the court didn't really understand the what occurred here.
What's it the saying? Yeah. Where did you get your license from? A cereal packet?
Right.
Well, he may well have done.
He might well.
Well, thank you to our crack APG research team who backs us up here at PTUK. Yes, it was a Falcon jet at Greenville, South Carolina, where the pilot and the co-pilot were unqualified.
Wow.
I love having APG backing us up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, well, they know what they're doing, to be fair. So there's always that. Dear.
Actually, Nev, do you want to take this next story? This next story was sent in to us. I think we got this. Did we hear from? Is it Andy over at the A320 podcast?
Oh yes,
it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. What happened here, Nev?
Well, it's on the independent.co.uk, and it says that two planes collide at East Midlands Airport. And a couple of planes collided during foggy conditions 3 days ago at the airport. It was a Ryanair aircraft which clipped a stationary Jet 2 aircraft whilst it was taxiing to stand at the Derbyshire airport. No passengers were on board either aircraft at the time of the incident, and no one was injured. A Ryanair spokesman told The Independent one of our training aircraft was taxiing to stand at East Midlands when its wingtip made contact with a Jet 2 aircraft. This aircraft was under the instruction of East Midlands traffic control at the time, and the crew were following correct taxi lines as per ATC procedure. The Boeing 737-700 aircraft was due to be used for training in East Midlands, so no customers were affected. Jet2 spokesman said a taxiing aircraft from another airline made contact with one of our stationary aircraft, which was parked correctly at East Midlands Airport this morning. There wasn't any passengers on the aircraft and no injuries. Although our aircraft was parked correctly, we will fully cooperate with the relevant authorities to help them investigate this incident. The airport said in a statement, a taxiing aircraft made contact with a stationary aircraft this morning on the central passenger apron at East Midlands Airport. There were no passengers on either aircraft and no one has been injured, at the risk of repeating ourselves there. And this is not the first time that an aircraft has collided with another whilst at an airport. Well, how surprising. Yes, this does happen fairly regularly. So if you remember last May at Istanbul, Ataturk Airport, an aircraft from South Korean airline Asiana was taxiing to the runway when it collided with the tail of a Turkish airline plane, severing it in half. Fire crews immediately rushed to the plane and began hosing it down. Sometimes the collisions involve another piece of airport equipment. Today, a few days ago now, the Independent reported that the Thomas Cook Airlines flight from Orlando to Manchester was delayed by 52 hours when a baggage cart crashed into the plane. As with all these things these days, it's actually safer flying the thing than being on the deck, because you're far more likely to have a collision or an incident on the ground rather than in the air.
The aircraft in question, as pointed out by lots of keen people in the chat room, was Echo India Sierra Echo Victor, which is one of Ryanair's what they call VIP plane. And I was just looking at some of the history of this aircraft, Nev. You know, when you kind of laugh and joke about cars having lots of previous owners before you purchase them.
Yes.
This particular aircraft was first flew in 1999, so it's just over 20 years old. It's had Azura Air, Rio Sol, Maersk Air, Sterling Airlines, Aries Columbia, LAN Columbia, and then Ryanair. So it's definitely been through the customer
wars,
base.
probably.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably just worth mentioning. I'm sure that because this was actually sent to us by a good friend of the show, and he did actually. One of the reasons why we mentioned this story was more about the inaccuracies of the story, wasn't it? That was more why he got in touch to say just sort of basically. I'm just is this so somebody was actually there at the time. The Jet2 737-400 had its wingtip clipped by the Ryanair 737, obviously not on the runway. In fact, it was a taxiway Alpha entry Quebec blocking it. Low visibility operations were in place and the airfield was running normally with minor delays. So, you know, it's it's one of those, isn't it, really? Bit of a funny one.
So the last story on the commercial section, it's a bit of a cast back your mind to many moons ago when there was a certain air program on I think it was ITV, wasn't it, Matt, called Airline, if you remember that. It followed the staff at EasyJet at Luton Airport.
Oh yes,
do you remember that
heavens.
Airline? Nev, do you remember that Airline?
Yeah, I do, yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So this story's on the ladbible.com website, and the headline, "Man's hilarious reaction to flight delay has gone viral." And, I mean, they do repeat these series on telly quite a bit, but they are really quite fun to watch. So the story goes, we all deal with hard times differently in life, but when one man got given lemons, he really took it on the chin, headed to an airport bar and cracked on with it. In a video that has recently surfaced online, a guy was watching an old episode of Airline and came across this absolute cracker. Talking to Twitter to share the joy with the world, and in the episode, an unnamed passenger who was the unfortunate victim of a flight delay on his way to Malaga, who was interviewed by the show. The airline are offering delayed passengers refreshment vouchers and a refund on their flight because of a 4-hour wait. And after speaking to a lady who, in all fairness, seems pretty happy with the offer, they head to the airport bar to do some filming. And then here is the guy, the man, the myth, the legend. Now, Matt, just play this because this is brilliant.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this. So I'll give it a try.
Hopefully this will play.
Yeah, I'm not getting any sound for some reason. So just carry on reading the story for a second, and I'll work it out.
So when asked about how he feels about the delay, he casually replies to the camera crew, "I'm pretty chilled out about this, actually. I've had 5 pints of Guinness so far." The standard response from a person trapped in a building with a bar.
Indeed.
And then he pushes that a bit further, saying and going on that, "My wife's just left me for another man. I can't mention her name. Oh, Jackie." And then he stumbles.
Oh.
And
Okay.
he's ever
Here
so
we
sorry
go.
about
Here we
that.
go. Let's give it a try.
But here we go. Just listen to this,
With
guys.
refreshment vouchers and a refund for the 4-hour delay.
That's not bad. They're going to give us the flight money back one way, okay? So that's less money, more to spend on Christmas presents when we get to Malaga.
I mean, I'm pretty chilled out about this, actually. I've had 5 pints of Guinness and my wife's just left me for another man. I can't mention her name. Jackie, I'm ever so sorry about that. So, actually, you know, the fact that it's a 4-hour delay on a flight doesn't bother me.
Well, I thought that was... Oh, wow, okay. That was unexpected.
That honestly was gold.
Wow. I mean, I feel a bit sorry for him, really. We shouldn't be laughing. That's quite cruel of us.
It was so
Deary
good.
me.
Honestly, of all the comments to make whilst doing a program such as Airline, but
Yeah.
see, even back then, drinking was a
faux pas.
a thing at the airport.
Yeah.
What do you think of that, Armando?
You know what? I'm glad you asked me, because I have the opposite of the story. I met my lovely bride on an aircraft delay, and I remember it.
Way.
Yeah, it was American Airlines 5774, and it was from Lubbock, Texas to Dallas, Texas, and it was delayed by over 4 hours, I think. And we met at the airport bar, along with the other, 20-something people that were on that CRJ. So by the end of the 3 hours, everybody was best friends, and I ended up with a wife out of that. So I also, don't mind delays, because they've been pretty good. So.
Wow, that's what an awesome story, Armando.
Tony says in the chat room here, is like, "Oh wow, Armando, you were well and truly compensated for that delay." I love it.
I should still, do a social media message to American Airlines.
Yeah, I think you should. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanking them for that delay.
Yeah, Andy Furlong says, "Love is in the air. Love is in the air, literally." Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think of that, Nev? Isn't that lovely?
It is, but it's going to be costly, isn't it? You know full well, Armando, that if you think your credit card is going to be safe anymore, then that's it. But having said that, you've got a lovely family, and what a great way to meet, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh. Nev, I love your realism.
Yeah. Yeah.
On
Back to earth,
anything
please.
we have to say. Yeah, back to earth. Yeah. Well, I love it.
Oh,
Together we are one good team.
That's this week's show title then. Love is in the air.
Love is in the air. Right. Okay. There we are.
There we go.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. I've got to remember that. Yeah. Somebody remind me.
Love is in the air. Yeah. Anyway,
Deary me.
that's where we bring the commercial segment to a close. Hope you all enjoyed that this week. So we're going to hand things over to Armando then to introduce a little video segment that goes along with something you done a few weeks ago, Armando. Just explain, just in case anyone missed that last week.
Yeah, actually, unintended segue. So Miss Megan and I got the chance to fly with the legendary Dr. Steph. Now, we've been planning a couple flights here and there, and it hasn't worked out for us. I won't recount the whole thing, because if you go over and listen to APG, Steph did a much better job than I of sort of recounting how the flight went and the quintessential North Carolina flying. And it wasn't the most exciting flight, but it's an opportunity to bring the podcast family together. And I got to fly with Steph, and was incredibly impressed by her professionalism and safety-mindedness. And together we worked very well in the air, and you're about to see that to the point where even Megan commented on that, be like, "Hey, is that how it usually goes?" And I was like, "Nah, probably not." If you're in the airlines or something like that, you're just hoping that you like the guy next to you for the next 4 days. But
yeah, I bet.
I really, really enjoyed flying with Steph, and apologize. I know this is an audio podcast, but there, so there's going to be some points where there's just aircraft engine noise. But if you get a chance, go over to the YouTube video and watch it.
What we'll do, because you've got this on your own YouTube channel, haven't you? If I recall correctly.
I have not posted it on there yet.
Oh, okay.
I can.
All right then. Yeah. Well, maybe if you post it on your YouTube video, then what we'll do is I'll make sure that a link to that video is included in the show notes, and then anybody who's listening to the audio version, if you look in the show notes, you'll see a link to Armando's video there. So I reckon we should play it. What do you reckon?
Alright, so before the run-up, we get up here, we'll go ahead and do the takeoff brief. So sure, we will be doing a left seat, regular takeoff. We have an emergency on the runway. We're going to stay on the runway. We have 5,500 feet of runway. If we have an emergency after takeoff and below 800 feet, we got 2 fields. Keep it within 30 degrees. We'll do that thing we talked about where we pop the doors. I'll secure the airplane. We'll put it down off airfield. If we can get a call off, that'd be great. Anything above 800 feet in this airplane, we will turn around. We got a direct cross. We'll turn north into the wind and put it back down on a piece of pavement or on the grass. Any other emergencies, I'll do the memory items. You back me up with the checklist. Got it. And yeah, and just keep me good on altitude. I don't want to get above 3 grand.
Nope, I'll make sure out of the Bravo. Good.
I thought I saw somebody.
There was somebody out there. They
okay, it's just
turned and they're heading to the west.
Alright. Lincoln County traffic, Arrow 42 Tango is taking runway 5. We'll be departing out to the east, below 3,000, Lincoln County. Alright, ready to go?
Ready?
Ready, Pip?
Yep.
Alright, let's go. Simulated text to my wife. Says, hey, taking off. Love you.
Love you.
Alright, speed's alive.
Green. Lincoln County traffic, Arrow 1342 Tango will be departing the pattern to the east, Lincoln County. Fuel pump off. Here. Throttle 2500. 25 squared.
Yeah, 25.
Crash required, fuel pumps off, instruments still all look
Everything looks good.
Taxi landing light, you just turned. I don't see anyone on the traffic here, although I know there's a couple people. Oh no, they headed out to the west.
About 2,000 A, right? What's the elevation around here?
It varies, it's around 700 feet in most areas. I mean, you got these higher going on. But definitely over Lake Norman area, it's 700 feet. Concord is 700 feet.
Perfect, so we'll take it to about 2,500.
Yeah, that'd be good. Our house looks pretty small from the air. Yeah, but what a nice place to be. This is perfect. Yeah, look at all the lake everywhere. Yeah. No matter where we drive, if Maddie's in the car, we look out the window and one of us shouts, "Lake!"
Winsboro traffic, Skylane 5131 November is 6 miles east of the field. Be entering a left downwind.
I'll put Laney's in number 2 here.
There was a tower close to where we took off.
Yeah, they're to the south.
To this, that's like right in our path, I thought, right now.
Yep, so there's 3 big ones over there.
No, there was one that was closer. Going straight ahead, there is one just to the south of us, that's 1130, and then there's one ahead of us. There's a couple ahead of us, and they'll be to the right, 15. They might be
probably on the
mountaintop. Yeah, we should be above. There was one other that was not on the mountain.
Yep, so there's the airport at our 11 o'clock.
Yep.
And the 3 towers that you got to watch out for are right there at our 10 o'clock.
Turned around, away from the towers, and they're heading close to us, but they are 1,300 below us now. They're ahead of us a little bit. Probably at our.
I got him in sight.
You got him?
Yep. 10 o'clock, he's
yeah, it should be about 10 o'clock.
Kind of by, well,
I don't.
by that building.
As long as you've got.
Yep, in sight.
Turning around. going the other direction anyway.
Turn around. We don't want to see you in the airspace. Turn around.
Maybe that Bonnie Tyler was so appropriate for all situations.
I can tell you, I know about 2 lines for every song ever made in history. But the rest I just go.
But they're perfectly appropriate for...
The rest get made up on whatever it is we're doing at the time.
Man, I'm going to have that song in my head this whole...
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Sorry, it's a good song. I'm a fan of it.
Alright, you want the controls?
Sure.
Alright, you control my radio.
Alright, my airplane. Your radio.
Third star to the right, straight on to morning.
Perfect.
Easy days.
Roger, traffic Cardinal 329 has departed 202 and will be departing the pattern to the southeast. Rockhill traffic.
As one does, just heading out to Asheville for lunch. No big deal. NBD.
It's always such a... Like, it's been so long since I've been in the right seat, so everything seems wrong. I'm like, where is everything? Driving from the right hand of the car. Right side of the car.
In my first couple weeks here, I did that a couple times where I was like...
On the wrong side of the road, or like...
Yeah, in the Jeep and like parking lots, I would pull out onto the right side.
You're like, nope.
Wait, left side of the lane.
It's probably a lot like flying out in eastern North Carolina. You're like, well...
A lot of fields.
A lot of fields. Guess they do some farming around here.
I haven't actually flown around here very much except for commercial flights. Like, I'm used to looking at the desert when I fly.
Right.
Which is actually really pretty, right?
It is very pretty.
Oh, the desert's beautiful flying. Tons of flying in Arizona. Perfect.
We went out, I flew the Lancer from Clovis to Phoenix, and then Meg flew out commercial. And then we went out from Phoenix to like Marana, Arizona, formation with a couple RV-8s. And it was so pretty, it was just like desert with these little oases of green cities. That was a bumpy day.
Oh, that was a very bumpy day. Yeah. I think we cut out of the formation.
Yeah, on the way back, I think we were like, all right, this is
dumb.
This is silly for us.
Too stressful and too bumpy.
And the 2 other guys were like Reno pilots.
Oh yeah.
So they're like used to like doing formation.
You're like, nope, this is not that good.
I think we ended up being like 5 miles from them, just watching from afar. See that mountain right there?
That one's Sugarloaf, right?
Nah, Sugarloaf is over here.
Sugarloaf's over here.
So let's shoot that gap right there. I think we got plenty. Looking at the hazard advisor, we'll just shoot
to the south of it, or to the
north.
To the north of it.
Yeah, so we'll just shoot this little gap here, and then we should be able to get a 90-degree turn out.
I don't know. Do you still think over here and then turn directly right? Or go that way?
Yeah, I think you're good anywhere
here. Just I'm gonna make a left turn, get around this stuff with the antennas on top, and then we should be able to make a right turn. Because I just don't know how close those clouds are on the other side of this bridge if I climb here.
Yeah, your lowest is that way.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I want room to be able to... I mean, I'm not worried about these clouds. If we end up in it, I'm gonna climb through them and then turn around and come back to a gap. But I'd rather not do that if I didn't.
Going to maintain 6,000. Turn left heading 260 vector 50.
Asheville approach, good morning. Arrow 1342 Tango is about 6 miles south of Sugarloaf. Like to come into Asheville VFR with information echo.
Number 1342 Tango Asheville approach, Asheville Steamer 3008, remain outside the class Charlie, standby.
Was that 388?
Remain outside the class Charlie 3.
Okay, remain outside the Charlie 42 Tango.
3008, yeah, sorry.
Cherokee inbound Asheville, stay again and stay position.
Hey, that's Arrow 1342 Tango. We're just south of Hendersonville, about 2 miles, 1,000 AGL.
Cherokee 1342 Tango, squawk 0226.
0226, 42.
Affirmative, and you are still number 5 for the field. Just maintain VFR own navigation to the southeast. We'll call you inbound here in a little bit.
Okay, own navigation out to the southeast. We'll stand by. 42 Tango.
Number 5 Yankee Victor, contact tower 121.1.
Number 5. That's gonna be a minute.
Busy day.
What do you think?
Make a circle around.
Check 42 Tango or Aero 42 Tango. Multiple aircraft are going to be inbound on the ILS runway 35. Current traffic is a Cirrus over Broad River 5100, followed by a Cessna. That is 4 miles in tail of bend at 6,400. Remain clear of the runway 35 extended center line at all times.
Okay, I'll tell you what, Aero 42 Tango, we're going to go ahead and head VFR back out to the east, out towards Lincolnton. I appreciate the help.
Check 42 Tango. Roger, radar search terminated. Squawk VFR frequency changes approved. Have a good day, sir.
Squawk VFR frequency approved, 42 Tango, see ya.
Yeah, that's just way too busy.
33 descending maintain 6,000.
Chubby's got a place to eat, right?
I don't know if it's open on Sundays. I looked at a whole bunch of places that have restaurants, and not a lot of them are open on Sundays, and let alone Easter.
Number 5, Yankee Victor, contact tower 121.1.
Alright, I am still heads down.
You're good. I am still heads outside.
394 Romeo Whiskey, Asheville approach, Asheville altimeter 3008, expect
Alright, you guys open for lunch today? Hello?
I don't know if you'll have signal right here. It might be open.
Yep.
Yep.
So that was,
in that direction with that.
Rutherfordton.
Oh, okay.
They answered, so
Yeah, give it a shot.
if not, we land, take a break, and then head back home.
Sounds good. Ladder break?
Ladder break. Alright, let's brief up the airport real quick. So Rutherfordton, we got...
Rutherford County Airport, automated weather.
So we've got 5,000 feet of runway. It's basically 0119 north-south runway. Winds are calm, at least calling calm.
Well, I go for the 0.
Number 4 Romeo Whiskey, left direct touch.
Yeah, because the winds have been out of the north around here. So, if there's anything, I would expect it would be that, but...
So we'll just plan sort of a left base to... to runway 1, yeah.
Perfect.
And let's see... Yep, so it's 5,000 feet by 100-foot runway, so we got nice big runway, and the FBO will be at the far end. Actually, we're doing a checklist.
Sure.
Alright, so decent checklist, all you got. Mixture is pretty much rich. Fuel we'll keep on this tank for right now. ATIS we got, altimeter set, Rutherford County traffic, Aero 1342 Tango is about 10 miles to the west. Will be left traffic, runway 01 full stop. You want the
Rutherford County traffic, rally 85 Tango Hotels, 2 mile final, 0 walk.
Yeah, but I'm gonna let you do the land, definitely.
Okay, pre-landing checklist, landing light is coming on. Autopilot's off, AC's off, seatbelt's good on the left.
Good on the right.
Good at the back. Make sure it is set. Fuel pump's coming on. Fuel will keep on the right side. Your override is off.
You want this mixture full rich or just for rich?
Yeah, go full rich. And then standing by gear and flaps.
Alright.
Looking for
yeah, I'll be taking it about 5 miles in.
Roger. There we go.
I got us.
Aircraft approaching Rutherford County, be cautious, there's coyotes on the south end of the runway.
Okay, thank you, 42 Tango.
I'm turning back in for another downwind right now.
I got you in sight.
How are you feeling about flying?
Alright.
Your aircraft.
My airplane. Alright, good speed. Here's down, 3 green.
Flaps can be 40 or as required. Prop high RPM. We're looking for 78, so 80. 14 Tango is turning left downwind for runway 1, Rutherfordton.
Alright, we'll call that a base.
Yeah. Rutherford County, 42 Tango, left base, runway 1, Rutherford. Rutherford County, 42 Tango, final runway 1. Gas undercarriage, mixture pumps, fuel switches. Good. I'm on coyote watch for you.
Thank you.
There's 80 knots, or 80 miles per hour. Beautiful. Rutherford County, 42 Tango, clear runway 1, taxiing to the FBO via Alpha, Rutherford County.
Alright.
Flaps up, fuel pump is off. Probes is our beacon set on, landing off. Fixture is required, off. Fixture is required again. Trim for takeoff, and gas battery.
Is Is this the FBO here?
There's a sign there that says FBO and an arrow pointing that way and a guy sitting on a rocking chair out there. So I guess that is the FBO.
Yeah, got it.
We'll go tie down over here somewhere and or just park probably. Pacific Coffee, having a nice Easter brunch. Hearing ELT verify silent. Avionics off.
Mags off. Master off. Lights off. Stack time. Fly it again.
I mean, wow.
Oh, that was so cool. I absolutely loved that video. For those of you who are listening to the audio podcast, please do take yourselves over to either our YouTube page, or Matt will also put the links in the show notes to the video. And it is well done, Armando.
Yeah. Thanks to Steph. Thanks to Megan for wearing the camera. She was a trooper about all that. But yeah, I loved it because it was some good aeronautical decision making, both on the weather, which we made a call that once Asheville told us, hey, you're number 5. You're not getting in here anytime soon. We said, okay, well, we're gonna go find a place to lunch. And then that was the other aeronautical decision, which was, okay, where are we gonna go for food? Yeah, we took the fact that they answered the phone as, they must be open, let's go.
Actually, Neil Lamwarn's asked a question in the chat room for you, Armando. Is it okay to use cell phones in flight in the US?
You know what? I will have to get back on that answer. I'll look at the FAR Part 91 rules on it before I say anything definitive.
I think as long as you're not PIC, it's probably good.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Mm. Well.
Yeah. My other favorite part of that video was the Rally aircraft. I think it's an experimental, who was coming into that one airport before us, and he's like, "Hey, y'all, watch out! There's some coyotes on the runway." And
as you do.
So neither Steph or I even blinked. We're like, "Okay, we'll watch out for coyotes." And I think it was the next day that Megan asked me, "Is that a common thing? Do you have coyotes regularly?"
Is that the only thing you have to watch out for when landing on the rural airfields?
No. Actually, there's turkeys. Turkeys don't move out of the runway. Deer. So I mean, you saw the terrain and you saw the woods there. This part of North Carolina and really the rest of the U.S. There's a lot of rural airports, and you have to watch out for critters and anything larger than about a cat. You might want to go around.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Deer are an issue. Coyotes are an issue. Turkeys are an issue, and buzzards will generally move, but then you're kind of playing chicken. You're playing chicken with a buzzard.
Right.
Who's going to move first? If you're going to go around, or if they're going to go around.
Right. Okay. I mean, it's just an absolutely brilliant video, mate. It was just so cool. Thank you for taking the time to put that together. It was very good. Yeah, and as you say, so talk us through. Sorry, the geek in me wants to know all about the cameras that you were using. So the little camera that Megan was wearing. So what's that? Is that like a mini GoPro or?
Yeah. So they are Contour cameras. So their Contour is a competitor to GoPro, and I chose them for no other reason than a GoPro is a square camera, and a Contour is long. So the only sort of adverse aerodynamic thing that you might have, because sometimes I would mount it on my experimental aircraft, I would mount them on the outside, is just the lens, as opposed to a GoPro, which would be a big square face. I don't think it really makes that much of a difference, but yeah, it's 2 GoPros, and then I just have a regular sort of voice recorder that you would find in a conference room with an audio adapter into the
headset.
Audio.
So very similar to what we were using then when you and I went out.
Yeah, it was a real same setup actually. I upgraded the voice recorder. That's about it.
Right. Okay.
Also, as well, Armando, I noticed the camera that you had on the dashboard there was very good as well, in that it wasn't vibrating or it didn't have any, it had a good stabilization on the camera.
Yeah, I'm working on the right setup where we can have maybe 3 cameras. I think I gotta buy one more camera because I will be doing a lot of flying, especially this summer. And this area is beautiful. Somebody was asking where that flight took place, and it's basically from Charlotte west, anywhere in that sort of upstate South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, Southern Virginia, and Western North Carolina. It's beautiful. It can be a little bit challenging finding a place to land if you were to have an emergency. There's a lot of wooded areas and some terrain, but yeah, it's just a great area, and I would love to get some exterior shots. But then you gotta start kind of watching out for the mounts. If it's a certified aircraft, I'd have to do a little bit of research on what camera you can mount on the outside of a certified aircraft.
Yeah, of course.
Jody, you're probably the person to speak about that. Jody Ruiger, wasn't she?
Yeah, she's got a good setup on that Pitts, and that's actually a good point or a good thing. I'll see Jody here in the next few weeks. I'll be going out to the Pylon Racing School at the Reno Air Races. I will not be flying. I'll be managing some of the ground stuff. But yeah, I can't wait to meet Jody in person. She was a great guest, and I can't wait to maybe get a little segment from her too when we're out there.
Excellent.
Grouse is ready for his song now, by the way.
You know what? I'm going to pass. We're probably going to lose so many listeners if I try to sing.
Absolutely. Anyway,
so
yes.
we're going to move on to.
We were talking about dogs that what's the to keep calming effect. This is how I stay calm during the show. Look.
Yeah, it works. It's just like you put a bandana on it and a yellow and a high vis jacket on the dog, and you'll be fine.
This is it. There we go. But
like that, when your computer gets taken over, you're perfectly fine.
I know, absolutely. But Grouse is going to be going outside now because it is a bit warm here in the studio, and I'm a bit worried about him. But he's come to say hello.
Oh, I didn't even realize you guys were in the studio because that beautiful picture behind you looks like you're sitting in a sunny flight line.
I know. Absolutely.
So, Armando, handing things over to you again and to introduce the military segment which you've prepared for us this week.
Yeah, in the interest of time, Matt, you're more than welcome to cut me off whenever you want, but we have a couple military stories and we can just breeze through them. So if you guys are ready.
Yeah, certainly are.
Yeah, all right, let's do it. Right, so the first story is from popularmechanics.com, and it's something that I believe we talked about or was mentioned last summer. But the June 2018 crash of a F-15 Eagle fighter was caused by pilot error, according to a report into the incident that came to that conclusion. The report says that the pilot became confused while visually tracking an F-22 Raptor stealth fighter, thinking he was flying to the right when he was actually flying vertically. The pilot ejected moments before impact, sustaining moderate injuries. The F-15C fighter, assigned to the U.S. Air Force's 44th Fighter Squadron on Okinawa in Japan, was engaged in a mock dogfight with a Raptor from the Alaska-based 525th Fighter Squadron. The F-15 pilot realized that the plane was slowing down, and according to Stars and Stripes, the aircraft may have stalled. The pilot attempted to correct the situation, but acting on incorrect information took action that actually made the problem worse. Within seconds, the pilot attempted to bail out. At first, pulled the wrong handle. When the pilot finally did bail out, they were just 1,100 feet above the Pacific Ocean. The pilot suffered a broken leg during the process, but was picked up by a Japanese Self-Defense Force search and rescue helicopter. The president of the Accident Investigation Board convened to look into the crash. Colonel Harmon Lewis Jr. said of the crash, 3 additional factors substantially contributed to the mishap: special disorientation, lack of emergency procedure training for negative Gs, and departure from controlled flight. Also a limited time to analyze the situation and recover. The fighter apparently crashed into the Pacific Ocean and was a total loss. The crash caused a temporary stand-down of F-15s at Kadena Air Base in Okinawa, where the fighter was based.
Just a quick question, Armando, on the story. I'm not 100% sure, but do military aircraft such as the F-15 and others have FDRs installed?
So they've got data recorders. I'm not sure about a voice recorder, but they can certainly pull the parameters for the aircraft as it was being controlled in a mishap like that. Now, often there are voice recorders also in that, and Neil in the chat room is asking what career consequences are there after an accident like this. Can the pilot keep flying? That's actually a great question. So when you are flying this kind of mission, there's almost an understanding that there is an element of danger associated with this, and that is exactly what the Safety Investigation Board is for. That's why they're so long. It'll determine whether it was a training issue, a negligence issue, a maintenance issue, or something else. And based on those contributing factors to the mishap, we'll determine sort of what sort of retraining the pilot or the aircrew will go through. In this case, I don't know the specifics for this pilot, but I can only imagine that the pilot was probably fine. They probably had to do some retraining, especially when it comes to emergency procedures training, which is done generally on the ground. But I can almost guarantee that this pilot is still flying a fighter jet. An F-15 in combat against an F-22 is probably not something that's simple. So I think there's an element of understanding there where the pilots would be able to get back on the horse, so to speak.
So the next story is on the combat aircraft, .keypublishing.com. And hello as well to Liz Bowen-Nelson joining us in the chat room. The headline is U.S. Air Force F-35As launch first combat missions. Updated story. Images released today by U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, have confirmed the first combat missions for U.S. Air Force F-35A Lightning IIs. A total of 10 F-35As from the 388th Fighter Wing's 4th Expeditionary Fighter Squadron, EFS, fighting Fusions. Is that, Armando? Fighting Fusions?
You got me.
Yeah. And its Air Force Reserve Command AFRC Associate Unit, the 466 EFS Diamondbacks, began arriving at Al Dhafra, United Arab Emirates, on the evening of the 15th of April for the US Air Force F-35A's debut combat deployment. The F-35s are now operating in support of the 380th Air Expeditionary Wing and are joining Operation Inherent Resolve. That's an interesting name for a operation, and likely to be replacing or working alongside F-15C Eagles of the 493rd EFS, the Grim Reapers, that are also in theatre. The F-35s launched initial local shakedown missions on April the 24th, carrying external missile rails but with no weapons attached. This was apparently followed by the first official combat missions on April the 26th, complete with live external AIM-9X Sidewinders. It was the first time the US Air Force F-35As were on the daily air tasking order and a dedicated VUL, or vulnerability period. According to CENTCOM photo release, this was followed on April the 30th by a further mission. The captions for the images depicting a tanker mission said the KC-10 and its crew were tasked to support aerial refueling operations for the F-35A's first air interdiction during its inaugural deployment to the US Air Force's Central Command areas of responsibility. A further news release added that details of 2 US Air Force F-35 Lightning II aircraft conducting an airstrike in Wadi Ashi, Iraq, in support of Combined Joint Task Force Operation Inherent Resolve on April 30th. The strike marked the F-35A's first combat deployment. It appears the 2 F-35As used GBU-31 Joint Direct Attack munitions to hit a tunnel network used by so-called Islamic State and weapons cache in the Hamroun Mountains near Baji in Iraq. The images depict a mission very similar to that experienced by combat aircraft editor Jamie Hunter last year. On that occasion, the magazine flew on a KC-10 out of Al Dhafra, supporting F-22 Raptors. The long flight saw the tanker supporting a pair of fighters as they pressed north into the Area of Responsibility, or AOR, namely Iraq and Syria. On call and ready to respond to a variety of situations, from combat air patrol, providing air cover for ground forces, to direct strikes in support of ground troops. Interestingly, the F-35s are still carrying their radar-reflecting Lundberg lenses, which means they won't be completely stealthy on these missions. This may be a measure to stop any attempts by other forces in the region to interrogate the F-35's low observable radar signature. A first report on the US F-35A combat deployment appears in the forthcoming June issue of Combat Aircraft, which you can find on the shelves in newsagents in the UK. So definitely actually looking forward. I think they've got a few of these at RIAT this year, so we'll be able to hopefully might get a chance to get up close and personal with one of these this year at RIAT. And fingers crossed, Armando. I did buy a lucky dip lotto ticket this evening before I came to the studio, and fingers crossed I'll be flying you out here for RIAT in July.
All right. Okay. Good news.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you come out to Oshkosh in July, I'll do my best to get you up close to an F-35 or any other great stuff. But I'm not sure that I'm going to have very much sway in that argument myself. But yeah, this is great. You know, we've been talking about the F-35s for years and years and years now. So going on their first combat deployment is the next step in their development and evolution, as I say. So Inherent Resolve is the U.S. and coalition forces against the Islamic State all over the Middle East. So it's, as far as a proving ground for this aircraft, there's a relative air superiority from the U.S. and the coalition partners. So it's a great place to sort of cut their teeth and really figure out what the airplane can do.
So, Nev, the next story is one for you, and also one that I'm sure Jonathan Warner will love.
Oh, he will, yes. And it's on the Bloomberg.com website. It says that China's stealth jet may be ready this year, according to the US commander. And the country might declare its first stealth fighter operational in 2019, as it also develops long-range bombers capable of carrying nuclear weapons, part of a regional build-up by Beijing that the US is closely monitoring, according to the US Air Force Pacific commander. General Charles Brown, the head of Pacific Air Forces, said that the stealthy J-20 fighter could possibly be operational this year, a move he said would signal greater threat and greater capability for China in the Pacific. He went on to emphasize that US efforts to counter these developments include rising deployment of next-generation F-35 jets and continuing overflights of strategic areas such as the South China Sea. My sense of the way that the Chinese operate is somewhat incremental, Brown said in an interview this week at Bloomberg's headquarters in New York. They'll continue to push the envelope to figure out, does anybody say or do anything? If you don't push back, it'll keep coming. Fielding the J-20 would add to what's already been the region's largest air force force and world's third largest, with more than 2,500 total aircraft, and including 1,700 combat fighters, strategic bombers, tactical bombers, and multi-mission tactical and attack aircraft, the US Defense Intelligence Agency said in a report earlier this year. In its annual report on China's military, the Pentagon said that the J-20 may have begun active service in small numbers, possibly with a testing and training unit. Chinese engineers report successful testing of a solid fuel ramjet missile engine, and they suggest this will enable the J-20 to carry out future Mach 5 300-kilometer range air-to-air missiles, according to the report published on Thursday. And China's J-20 fighter is part of a modernization effort that's been closing the gap with Western air forces across a broad spectrum of capabilities, such as aircraft performance, command and control, and electronic warfare, according to Defense Intelligence Agency reports. Charles Brown also said that he thinks that China is moving to develop dual-use bombers that will be similar to our bombers in terms of being able to carry nuclear weapons and non-nuclear precision-guided weapons. I don't think it would be too far off the mark to say that they could do that as well, Brown added, without indicating whether China may have a stealth bomber capability. Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan, in a statement on Wednesday for the House Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, said a Chinese long-range bomber, if successful, would make it only to one of three nations to possess a nuclear triad of land, sea, and air-based nuclear capabilities. The US has a number of ways to counter China's build-up, Brown said. This includes bringing unpredictable in deployments of the B-1B, B-52, and B-2 bombers. The B-1B, Brown said, is now qualified to carry a new Lockheed Martin Corporation anti-ship missile, a few of which have been stockpiled in the Pacific region. It's quite a long story, this, so rather than run out of time at the end. But that's quite an interesting development with the J-20, and the US are obviously keeping their eyes on it.
I must admit, I looked at a picture of this on Wikipedia, and it looks like it's like various pieces of other aircraft that have all been kind of, pinched from other designers. Just my view.
Yeah.
Well, we're seeing a little bit of a trend, right, based on the F-100 DC-9 copy that we saw a little bit earlier from Comac. But staying away from politics, we'll see what the Chinese are able to develop here in the near future with this. Somebody, Nelson in the chat room was saying it looks like a mix between the Dassault and the F-35. So, we'll see.
So in the last story then, Matt, there's some good news for the French Air Force.
Indeed, yes. This is on the defencenews.com website, and the headline is French Air Force receives first tactical A400M transport plane. So Paris, this is where the story's from. The French Air Force has taken delivery of its 15th A400M Atlas military transport aircraft, the first directly outfitted with the tactical standard, including an expanded ability to land and take off from unprepared terrain and the capacity to make landing approaches under automatic pilot in all weather. 3 previously delivered aircraft have been upgraded to this new standard. Two new capabilities will be added in the fall. The ejection of heavy loads of up to 16 tons from the rear ramp and refueling by central point. The 11 other Atlas aircraft currently in the French inventory will be upgraded to this tactical standard by 2020. Refueling from a central point will be by means of a hose drum unit, HDU, stored in the hold when not in use. Combat aircraft are already refueled via the wing pods on the Atlas, a capacity available on all 15 of the French A400Ms. Another refueling system will be put into place to refuel helicopters, but a DGA French procurement agency official told Defence News that is for later. Also for later will be the capacity to parachute more than 30 paratroopers per door and per dispatch. The military's requirement is that 116 paratroopers jump out of the aircraft in one dispatch, but for the moment this is impossible because of an issue with the so-called D-bags, which hold the paratroopers' chutes in their backs. This bag is opened automatically by a static line connected to an anchor cable and the paratroopers. As they step out of the aircraft door, the static line pulls taut, removing the D-bag from the parachute and allowing it to open very quickly. The D-bag remains attached to the static line and flaps alongside the outside of the aircraft. As more paratroopers jump out, the volume of discarded D-bags increases, presenting a hazard to those waiting for jumping. Manufacturer Airbus has been looking at a way to make the paratroopers step out onto the outer edge of the aircraft frame before jumping. This would take them a sufficient distance from the flapping bags to neutralise the risk of D-bag interference. It could also help resolve the issue of simultaneous dispatch, which is where parachutists exit the aircraft from both sides at the same time. Currently, the danger is that they could get too close together after dispatch, risking collision. France's 2019 to 2025 military programme law provides for the delivery of another 10 A400Ms during the period, for a total of 25 aircraft in service by the end of 2025. Now that's an interesting story. I hadn't really thought about that, where you've got multiple people jumping out of an aircraft. I didn't really give that any thought.
Oh yeah, it happens all the time. Some great videos on YouTube of that as well.
Oh, is there? Yeah.
From the 400.
Yeah. I was just going to say, for anybody that got lost in that article, you can just YouTube videos of a static line jump from a C-130.
It's good.
And or a C-5 or C-17 or anything like that. And you'll see exactly what they're talking about with those deployment bags going out. It's actually pretty violent looking. But it is no secret. Anybody that was with us at the Farnborough Air Show, I love the A400M. I think it's a great airplane.
Yeah.
It is.
And then I also have a special affinity for the French Air Force. I've worked quite a bit with them and quite closely, and they're incredibly capable. So to see them get this kind of capability in their A400s is great.
I still think to this day one of the most standout things from Farnborough what was the first one we went to? What was it, 2018? So it would have been 2016. Yeah. Thank you, Nev. Yes, thank you. Yes, Farnborough 2016. And you had the A400M and the A380 both sort of doing manoeuvres sort of simultaneously. I mean, it was just one of the most amazing things. They're both stunning aircraft, aren't they? You know,
most of these have been ordered in Europe, actually. The biggest user of these being Germany, followed closely by us in the UK here. They're also French in the third sort of place, really, in Spain. And also Belgium and Luxembourg have got some of these on order to be delivered in 2020.
I mean, they must be rapidly becoming a very popular.
Very popular.
Certainly with the military. I mean, I don't think there's many forces that
the
don't
only
have them,
says here that the only non-European country to purchase these aircraft was Malaysia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, cool. They've got 4 of these.
Yeah.
So there we go.
They're a great aircraft.
Yeah. So that's where we bring the military segment to a close. But before we wrap up, we've got some certain bits of information about a certain thing that's happening very soon at Duxford. So, Nev, what's going on next week?
Well, it's on Sunday the 12th of May, and we'll all be over in Duxford in Cambridgeshire at the Imperial War Museum, and we've got quite a few listeners and viewers coming, which is fantastic news.
So exciting.
So we will be there, the PTUK crew will be there from 10 o'clock onwards. Most people have said they can get there for 11. So what we're going to try and do is, if you can get there for 11 o'clock, that would be great. Anyone that wants to come beforehand, that's fine. We'll be there from 10. And then we're going to try and get a bit of a sort of a group entry in terms of the cost of getting in. So if we can get as many people as we can there for 11 o'clock, that will be great. We're going to be bringing some T-shirts with us on the day, so if anyone wants to purchase one, they're going to be at the discounted price of £15 each, because there's no postage and packing, which will be great. I'll be bringing all my video gear, so I should be being a nuisance with my camera. As usual, doing
and I should just say, actually, I'm going to interrupt you. I should just say, if you haven't seen it already, it is worth coming, if only to see Nev's marvellous muff.
Oh, Blimey, yes.
Yes, it is a fabulous.
Yes, I've given it a special comb as well.
Have you?
So,
what a real treat for the listeners. Yes.
There we are. So I should be getting that out and giving it a bit of an airing.
Indeed. Let's hope it's not windy.
Well, yes. Now let's hope that the weather's reasonable,
Yes.
because there are people flying in for real,
Yeah.
which is brilliant. So let's just keep our fingers crossed that the weather's going to behave itself.
Yeah, indeed. I was just having a quick look in the emails here, trying to. So we've got a chat. Hello to Owen Dowling, who sent us an email this week. Very much looking forward to meeting you again. Fingers crossed. Owen's actually going to fly in from Dublin, all being well. Owen spelt the proper way, obviously, EOIN, of course. Looking forward to him coming in. There we've got. Is it Javid Rahman has been in touch? Apologies if I said that wrong. He's planning to fly in as well. It doesn't say in the email here, unfortunately, where he's coming from, but Javid, very much looking forward to meeting you and your son. That's gonna be great.
Captain Al.
Yeah,
Captain Al is also hoping to fly in as well with passengers.
Yes, absolutely.
And also, Pilot Pip is going to be hopefully flying in as well, and hopefully Pilot Pip will be making several landings.
Because that's what he does best. Yeah, absolutely. Chris Griggs also looking forward to seeing you at Duxford as well. Jonathan Warner, I think he's going to be there, as is Philip Davis. Looking forward to seeing you there. All the usual suspects will be joining us.
Including my dad.
Including Carlos's dad. Yeah. There we are. So if anybody wants to find out who's to blame for all this drivel, then you'll be able to ask the man himself.
My dad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So and Neil Lamborn, obviously, he sent an email earlier in the show, didn't he? He's coming as well. So yeah, it's going to be a right old gang of us. I really can't wait. It's going to be so much fun.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to it.
It's going to be so much fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So hope to see as many of you as possible there at Duxford on the 12th of May.
Indeed. It's time to start wrapping up. So
we are going to start to wrap up the show. We're going to say a huge thanks to all the YouTube viewers who've tuned in tonight for the show. Big thanks to all you guys and girls for joining us tonight and taking time out of your Friday evening. Also, not forgetting as well all the guys and girls who download the show as an audio version through iTunes and Podbean and Stitcher and all the other downloady places.
Wherever it is that you get your podcast from, thank you.
And also, don't forget, if you do download the show via iTunes, it would be awesome if you could give us a little starry rating on iTunes, because it does help to push the show and do all the lovely things that we do love here at PTUK.
Indeed. Carlos, what are you up to this week? Anything fun?
I'm off, actually. It's the bank holiday weekend, so we've all got Monday off.
Yes,
hopefully.
That's true. Yes.
But on Tuesday, I'll be driving down to Nev's neck of the woods. But unfortunately, Nev's not going to be there.
Nev has found out in advance and has filled his diary very quickly.
Thanks, Nev.
Absolutely.
Much love.
Yeah, Nev, what are you up to this week? Flying anywhere?
No, not this week. But on Monday, I shall be travelling to see a former Concorde captain and broadcaster. And I should be having a cup of coffee and some biscuits. Very nice.
Oh God, you know how to hobnob with the best of them, don't you?
It's who you know, isn't it? It's who you know. So
he doesn't do things by half.
No, of course he doesn't. No, absolutely. That's why he's the legend that he is. Armando, what are you up to? Do you have a bank holiday on Monday or?
No, I have to say goodbye to bank holidays. So that's definitely a British thing. But I think tomorrow, as long as the weather holds out, a good friend of mine, Dustin, and I will be taking the Tobago up to Lexington, North Carolina, where there is the Aviators Rendezvous 2019. I think they have some warbirds coming in, lots of airplanes. They have some music, some vendors. This will not be out in time, but if hopefully I can get up there, and I'll take all the regular kit with me, and maybe I can get an interview or something with one of those warbird organizations.
Excellent.
Indeed.
Neil Lamborn has asked a very important question in the chat room. obviously because of what happened at Seething. So is there going to be any formation flying on the
I think because of where everybody's coming from, I think the short answer is no. But
I'd love to see that though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, looking forward to it, guys and girls. Can't wait.
But I've got a couple of things on my itinerary for this week. One of which I'm very excited about, is I'm off to Harry Potter World.
Anyway, moving on.
Am I the only one who's excited by the fact that I'm going to Harry Potter World? Okay, I'll take from that.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Cue tumbleweeds.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited. Sod the lot of you. That's what I say. Anyway, is that the time? Get in touch with the show. Podcast
Social
at
media.
planetalkinguk.com. That's podcast at planetalkinguk.com. The website, www.planetalkinguk.com, which, if you are unable to join us at Duxford, you will be able to buy T-shirts from... What's the matter with you?
Carlos at planetalkinguk.com.
Matt at planetalkinguk.com.
Nev at planetalkinguk.com.
Look, you can't do that on the camera. Like,
yeah.
The finger is going.
Sorry, hold on. If I go like this.
Brady Bunch. Come on, Nev. High five me.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Yeah, that's going to be be the other way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of course, it's that way.
This is totally wasted on everybody listening to the show. But anyway, sorry about that. Yeah. So Nev at planetalkinguk.com, and of course it's Armando at planetalkinguk.com. Social media. Search for us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter by looking for our handle, which is Plane Talking UK.
So that is where we bring episode number 267 to a close.
And not 266 like what it says in our show notes.
Or not episode number 199 at the 200 show in London.
You just couldn't help yourself.
Thank you.
That'll teach me, won't it?
I know.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
There we
Anyway,
go.
is that the time? But say goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Woo.